Joining me now is Congressman Darrell Issa, the Vice Chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, welcome back to the program. I've asked this to a lot of people. How do we know that China won't cheat on any trade deal? Because they've cheated in the past.
Stuart, thanks for having me on, and thanks for opening with the question that everyone knows the answer to. Of course, they're going to cheat. The famous quote of President Reagan: "Trust but verify." Look, trust means you don't trust if you have to verify, and we not only have to verify, but we have to go back and insist. But that process is a process President Trump has learned the hard way, that he makes a good faith deal, he recognizes that it's not being kept, and he quickly comes back either with retaliatory threats or with public comments and brings them back into the fold. That's one of the challenges we're going to have going forward with China is make deals, enforce the deals, come back and reinforce the deals day after day, and particularly on intellectual property, this massive theft, cyber attacks, in addition to obviously the other issues that began this. We're going to have to do that. But look, during President Trump's term, and as long as we, the Congress, and the next president beyond Trump are willing to do this kind of go back again, we can bring them along. But if we slip up and let them go back to their old habits, they will.
Overall, though, this Asia trip looks like it caps the success of the tariff policy so far. And you've got deals with all kinds of countries all on this one tour, and you cap it off with a meeting with Xi Jinping. I would call that an overall successor.
Oh, absolutely. What the president has done is he's moved the direction of the current. Like a great river that flows one way, and it was flowing against us, deindustrialization, and essentially leading to our potential demise. The flow now goes the other way. You saw that with Japan's major investment, and the list is going to go on. And those investments are in reindustrializing America, bringing us back to where not only can we make more of our own goods, but if we have to go to war, the ability to surge the way we did in World War II has to include an industrial base that can go from consumer goods or other goods back into military if needed. That's what we haven't had. That's why the president is doing this. And some people miss the point. This is about economic strength in order to maintain a peace that America has maintained since World War II on behalf of the entire world.
Axios is reporting that Ukraine's President Zelensky is not satisfied with Trump's new sanctions on Russia, and he wants the US to send long-range missiles to Ukraine. I'm sure we've talked about this before, Congressman, but in your opinion, should Trump give them long-range missiles?
Well, those are two good questions. First of all, President Zelensky saying he's not satisfied is, like the mayor of a town walking up to the president and saying, let me tell you how it's done, buddy. And that just isn't right. And I think he has to understand that the president is doing a lot for him, but there are limits to what he will do on behalf of President Zelensky's desires and ego. On the other hand, no question at all, little by little, we have been giving better weapons, longer weapons, weapons that allow Ukraine to let Russia know that they've got to come to the table sincerely, or there will be mutual destruction, because that's the only thing that President Putin really understands, is not just when his troops die, because apparently he doesn't care, but when civilians far into Russia see the effects of the war, then he reacts. And that's what President Trump is doing. That's what President Trump will do for Ukraine, but he'll do it because it brings Putin back to the table, which is what President Trump wants. President Trump doesn't want an expanded war. He wants to lead this to a peace, something he's uniquely good at.
Congressman Darrell Issa, thanks for joining us, sir. See you again real soon. Thank you.